Well, hello everybody, and I think in this video we're going to take a closer look at the beamoscope antenna. So let me just move the radio off to the side here. Go. Bits and pieces of junk here, but we won't worry about that. Right now we're going to take a look at this guy. Designed for better reception. Has a trimmer capacitor right there. And it has these three wires coming out the back. And the problem with this is wire insulation has completely fractured. It's just shot here. If I just bend it a bit, it'll just become more of the debris on my bench here. So what I have to decide is, am I going to try to open this thing up and replace these wires right back to their connection point, which is probably just in here. And the challenge with that is it's riveted. Riveted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rivets holding it together, and you know, if I want to take this out, either I'm going to rip it and just physically put a screwdriver in there and just burst it through, and then I would you know, pull out what's left of the rivets and put a little nut and bolt set in there. Probably I could rivet it back. Another alternative is just leave it. Assume the wires inside here, doesn't matter if the insulation is bad, the wires are fixed in place, they can't move. Sure feels like that. As you can imagine, it's pretty tight in there. Oh, well, maybe we can even see inside. Not really. So what are the consequences here? If I take this whole thing apart, it's a lot of work and effort. I may get it back together. It may not look so good as it does now. Secondly, I may open this thing up and there's consequences that I can't even anticipate right now, although I don't know what those might be. Could be a surprise inside here, in other words. I mean, obviously when I'm finished it won't be what it is today. Today it's an original. After I'm done it'll be a reworked one. Don't know why they have this one coming out here like that. Kind of unusual how that's done. So as I'm sitting here, I'm thinking the best thing I can do is trim these wires back, leave them bare in here, what does it matter, and then solder extending wires on, and we have to connect them to, here's the plug, the rest of the wires. Hey, it looks like there's actually two colors there, kind of a green and then a darker color. Maybe these were three different colors when they started. They sure aren't now. So these I'll remove from here, attach new wires and bring them here. How long do they have to be? Not very long, about that long. And I think that's the approach I'm going to take. I don't think I want to drill out these rivets and do all that. Ultimately, electrically, it probably will make no difference over just extending the wires from here. So that's the approach that I'm going to take. You might call it the easy way out. Now let's get some nice wire here. Get some nice wire. How about this stuff? This is from a car alarm kit, I think. You get 3 there, yellow, orange, and red. They look pretty nice. Ooh, a great big fuse in them. Huh, that's interesting. So what about down here? Is there enough wire? Oh, there sure seems to be. Gotta be enough. Yeah, so let's use this nice, real heavy stuff here. I like it. We'll take yellow. Oh, red one's a little short. Is it too short? Is it too short? No, I don't think so. So we'll cut these. They should all be the same length, really. There's no reason to have one longer than the other. So we'll cut the yellow and the orange same length. There we go. This will be a lovely wire. Now, before I make a mistake, cut anything, I cut these so I could identify which wire went where. I cut them in different lengths. That's why there's a short one here, a medium one here, and a long one here. And these ones are the opposite, and they kind of match. Long with short, medium with medium, short with long. So how am I going to mark this off now? I'm going to make a diagram. I think that's the easiest way. So when I look at this, I see 3 wires, one here, one here, one here, actually 4, and then this lug down here. And when I look at this plug, which is shaped a particular way, I can show it like this. I don't think I can make any mistakes. Now, the longest wire, so this connects to this. The shortest wire goes in the middle. That's not too surprising, is it? That these hook up in the same pattern that they're in here. Okay, that's pretty easy. Now we can go ahead and cut these and clean them up and get them ready for extending. So, pull off all the bad insulation here. Not hard to do, that's for sure. Now the funny thing is, I did work on another radio. It had a wave magnet brand antenna. It's a completely different antenna from this, completely different. And wouldn't you know it, the wires leading to the antenna are exactly like this, shot the same way. So I had to run off to a big garbage can. Now, I want to get rid of these wires. Just come around here. Okay, that's pretty solid. And we'll just do them one at a time. One of the problems with doing exactly what I'm doing right now is you can get solder on the outside of the pin, so you can usually just flick it right off. It doesn't settle in very strongly. It doesn't adhere very strongly. But coming out easy. These wires were just soldered right at the tip. They didn't have much solder inside. Okay. So it's a pretty simple matter now. We're just taking these wires. There's a lot of wire in there. Hope it fits. These wires are of course, this is from an automobile car alarm. Consequently, the wires are pretty substantial, the conductors. Get the length roughly correct here. That's pretty big, and no way it's going in there. I'll have to trim it down. I'll still use this wire, but I'll have to trim off some of the conductors, because it's going to look real nice. And there we go. Okay, so we'll trim away about half of them. That's going to fit quite nicely. Oh, don't twist them up. Don't twist them up. Fan them out. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll tin these wires now. Because it'll be much easier to solder them in once they're tinned. Beautiful sunny day here today, but very cold. Well, I shouldn't say very cold. It's just above freezing. Sun makes a big difference. I can't see what I'm doing. Especially right at the tip here. I'm going to put a blob of solder on there. It's going to be too wide to get into the plug. Maybe we can continue right like this. On. A little hard working in the... Yeah. That guy's got a bit of a problem. Got one strand out on its own. There we are. These connectors have little tiny holes in the ends of them, and that's where you pump in the solder here. So, okay, make sure the wire's seated high, which it is. Too much light for you, right? There we go. Excuse me. Must be my coffee. Now if I can twist these wires there, they didn't work. But they're in there pretty solid, as you would expect. Okay, let's see how that did. I think it's still a little hot to grab, so it's good. Oh, this one's not good. Oh yeah. I left a little bit of the naked wire sticking out here, but I don't think it'll matter. Not enough to cause a short. It's just... Oh, I see. The whole pin is spinning in the mount, and it's giving it the impression the wire is spinning inside the pin. But it's not. Okay. Hey, let's see if I've got some matching color shrink sleeve here. It can be real fancy. That's probably the right stuff there. As we make a nice tight joint. This I'll be able to set right down on there. So that's a yellow one. A red one. Oops. Make these the same length here. And of course, I don't have an orange one, of course. Orange is kind of weird, so what will we use? We use more red on that. That's about all we can do. So there's our shrink plastic. We'll slide it up the wires now before we forget, because that's one of the easiest things to forget. Okay, we'll prepare these ends. I may have to cut down the number of conductors on here too, just to make the joint small enough that the shrink plastic will go over it. I don't want a big clump of wire, so we'll do that. I can really get rid of the bulk of it. Jim, why didn't you just use a thinner wire? Well, I guess I could have if I'd hunted around my shop long enough. Could have found something a little lighter. But I like this wire. I like the dimension of it, the level of flexibility, and the color. Okay, so I'm not going to tin these ones, because once they're tinned, they're pretty inflexible. I'm going to keep them flexible. Now, if I remember the key, it was real easy. It's basically the same shape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach this quite low here. I think you can come in. I'll do the super close-up shot here. That way you can see better than me now. Solder that. Yeah, I can actually see better on the computer screen than I can with my own eyes. And again, I've got the lights down because this camera is so darn sensitive. So I think that's going to do it. So you actually see better than me. But I am going to take a close-up look. I'm worried here that the solder has not actually flowed onto the old wire, and that's what it looks like. It looks like the solder is pretty tight. Probably one of these good enough deals. Yeah, I think I'm going to sand the other wires just a wee, or braid them just a little bit before I solder them. I think this guy's okay though. Not going to come off. Bulb there. Let me crush it a little bit. Yeah, I think I can get the shrink sleeve over that. Okay, we'll do the others. So right off the bat. Hey, that's the wrong wire in the wrong place. Oh, dumb. Ah. How did I manage that? Isn't that stupid? Let's try again. Sometimes I really wonder about myself. I figure there's these people out there who just don't make mistakes. And I am certainly not one of them. Well, you know, I caught my mistake here, so it shouldn't feel quite so bad. Now let's see if we can find a little sandpaper here. It's pretty fine stuff. Too. And once there's a bit of corrosion on the surface of the metal, the solder's not happy to flow. Because in a sense you're trying to solder something that's closer to stone than it is to metal at that point. Okay. Well, we'll start with the yellow one, which is the middle one. A bit of a blob there, I think. Solder's really not liking that old wire. It's not liking it. Well, it's flowed onto it. It's flowed onto it. Okay, that was that one, and this one's this one. And the reason I didn't want to tin the wire before doing this was so I could fan out the conductors just like I did there. So I don't end up with a bulky solder joint. Okay. Very suspicious about that. See that? Just pulled it right off. That one soldered in, this one didn't. And certainly when I look with my eyes, it looks just fine. And you know, it probably would be electrically okay to leave it. But this is a steerable antenna. That means it's going to get mechanically worked a bit if we try steering the antenna. Being a little more brutal this time in terms of preparing the wire. Scrape it like that. If I break the wire off, you know, too low, then the whole project becomes a big project, which I'm trying to avoid. Okay, let's put this on here. Oops. Smoothest looking thing, but let's solder that. I try to apply the heat to the wire I'm having trouble with. Oh, it looks like it took the solder that time. Lots of heat. That looks much better. Let's see. Yeah, there's solder flowed all through it. It's a great big clump though. Hope we can get the shrink sleeve over that. Now the last one. Oh, this is a wire everywhere. It's not so good. Oh, let's when you use a tool like this, like my cutters this way, it tends to cause the wires to fan out and individually get pulled across the blades of the cutters. So it's actually very effective at scraping the wire. And obviously I'm not getting out a microscope and scraping, you know, every surface of every individual strand all the way around. All I really need to do is just kind of disrupt that corrosion coating enough, and the solder will start adhering. Adhering well enough anyways. And, you know, there's other approaches. You can throw acid on there. Generally not good to use acid around a radio, or for that point. Not much of anything in this world is ready for acid, but there are. See, I've heated up the new wire. I may not be putting enough heat into the old one here. Yeah, I think it's flowing in there. But the problem with the acid is after you're all done, there's still some acid left, and it may flow. I mean, we're talking about years here that need to go by. Yikes. lost that piece. But in the end, the acid may cause more problems than it solves for you. Oh yeah, it's not going to go over that, is it? Not the way it is right now. There's one. Get it right into the hole. There's two. Now this one's about the hardest one, it looks like. I can't keep my eye on the camera in that, so I'm not too sure what you're seeing. Can it go over that stuff? No, there's no way it's going to. I've been here before. It's not going over that. See, we can't crush this a little bit. Solder is soft, you know, you can squeeze it. You know, that might do it. Let's give it a try here. Come on, I've gone this far, I gotta go all the way. Okay, that's it for that one. We hardly have to shrink these. Maybe I'll just do it with a soldering iron here, just shrink them up at the top, just to kind of lock them down. Hardly take any shrinking to lock these guys down. There we go, and we have a repaired antenna. We got one wire a lot longer than the other somehow, the red one. Yeah, that's too bad. I kind of want to lock them in like that. Let's do that. They'll reduce the amount of individual strain. Although these should take an awful lot of working, and they're not going to get a lot of working. They should take a lot of working up in here. It's just stranded wire. And ultimately the movement is restricted. So you can't even move the wire that far. So although it's moving around, it looks kind of floppy right up in here, I think it's totally harmless. That's good for that. Too bad about the excess wire here. Whoops. I'm not looking at what I'm doing. I'm looking in space. If I had my video screen right here where I'm working, and I'd have my eyes on it all the time, but I'm concentrating on what I'm doing and I'm missing how this looks on the video screen. Now, what about that excess solder on there? Wow, it's really on there. That's enough to cause trouble too. not easy to get solder off. Like doing it like this, you tend to, if anything, put more on. Okay. We'll leave that for now. There it is. The Beamoscope. General Electric. And it's still in, I'm sure I made the right decision here to not take it apart and mess it up. The other Beamoscope I did was a great big thing, like a size of a small office garbage can. It had to be completely disassembled to fix the wires all the way back right into the antenna. This one's quite different. It's just a flat. It's really not much different than the antenna you find on the back of most radios, really. Let's hear it for the marketing department at General Electric, because I'm sure they were behind the Beamoscope. Okay, thanks for watching. See you on the next video.